Good evening, everyone. I am your host and instructor, Laney Shaughnessy, and welcome to Spindle TV, your best source for CNC CAD/CAM training videos. Spindle TV is brought to you by Digital Wood Carver, inspiring your creativity and providing you with the tools to create your own unique masterpieces. Hello. Welcome, everybody. Look at that mess behind me. What's all that stuff over there? How's everybody doing tonight? Hopefully things are going well for you all. Everybody says somebody. We're going to get started here in just a few minutes. Just a few moments. Give everybody a chance to get in. Welcome from Texas. Hey, Joe. Mike Smith, William, Dave Gatton. Welcome, Dave Gatton. Thanks for popping in tonight. I appreciate it. Taking time out of that busy schedule, all those broadcasts you're doing every day. Is it every day, Dave? Coffee with Dave, is that every morning or Tuesday mornings? Let me know. Oh, my goodness. Welcome, Jeff. Jeff was the first one to pop in. All right, let's go. We are going to visit a project that I did a long time ago. I don't think it was on Spindle TV. I think it was on one of my earlier classes and everything. And every weekday at 9. Awesome. I have to jump in more often. I caught it today. I kept thinking it was Tuesdays. But quarterboard signs. So while we're waiting for people to pop in, let me tell you a little bit about quarterboards and things. So if the history is right, back in Chatham, Massachusetts, is kind of where some of the first quarterboards were carved, and they're basically really nice carved and gilded ornamental signboards. They were originally made for ships, and whose name they had on them, and they're also referred to as stern boards. The difference is basically where it was placed on the ship, where it was located and all. And a lot of the older antique quarterboards come from the maritime trade of the 19th century, when ships were sailing along the east coast of the U.S., where shipwrecks, were common and stuff. The quarterboards would actually end up washing up on shore, and they were basically kind of displayed, if you will, on houses and the side of barns and things in Chatham. In the town of Chatham, you can see old and new, as you roam the towns and the back roads and things, you can see houses that have, quarterboards probably displaying the name, and they usually have some type of nautical theme to them and things. And with that, I got two screens here, so I'm trying to figure out which one I should be looking at. Should be looking straight at the camera. Let's see if I can get some samples popped up here. Is it going to load? It might load. We'll see here. Let's see if we can switch over. So a lot of the quarterboard signs and all, they have some type of nautical theme, such as this one here, and they could either be painted. Generally, they are gilded with either a gold gilding, sometimes it could be actual, 18 or 24 karat gold. Sometimes it just, the faux gold gilding. And they usually have some type of, like I said, nautical theme to them, and name. And they come in a variety of designs and shapes and things. And typically, they're typically about 5¼ inches wide, up to 48 inches long. But of course, you can, size them as you will and things. And they're typically gold leafed. I was saying, gold leafed. And as this example here, basically it's a gold leafed sign, and then it is nicely pinstriped, painted around the edges. Now I'd like to try to attempt something like this, but with inlay. I want to talk about some V-carve inlay and do some inlay work in tonight's project and stuff, and maybe we can obtain this. But by a show of everybody in the group, how many of you ever did like on a project any gold leafing, whether it's actual 18 karat gold or 24 karat gold, or the stuff that you would the faux gold leafing that you would buy at like a Hobby Lobby or Michael's or something like that. And there is just a variety of samples of different layouts, and we're gonna create a few of our own, and I'm gonna walk you through the process and stuff, and we're gonna see what we can come up with. All right, so for that, show and tell is over. Just to give you kind of an idea of what we are doing. Not me. Devin says, not me. I've never tried that. I've done gold leafing, and it's really it's an art. It's a craft and stuff, but man, getting it laid down just right, getting that adhesive on just right, in the correct places, and then laying it on and kind of getting it nice and smooth, that foiled look and everything. It takes some doing and stuff. And so we're going to look at some different examples. We're going to make some quarterboard signs and stuff, and I just kind of laid this one out to begin with. Now you'll notice one thing. First of all, let's get this tight and right here real quick. Let me change my screen settings so everything is nice and big for you guys and girls. So we're going to jump into my display settings, and let's get this set up to where everything is nice and big. Sorry about that. We'll keep those changes, and we'll get out of that, and we'll come back in here. Now, one of the things that you'll notice is that I'm working in Aspire tonight. Now, most of everything that I'm going to be doing can be done in Desktop Pro or Aspire. The only reason I'm working in Aspire tonight is because I would like to show some examples of building up some models. And just like in this example here that I built up, if we pop back over to the side here, let's turn off these models. But the V-carve or the raised letter effect and things like that all can be done in any of the software. So don't get discouraged that I'm working in Aspire this evening. I just want to kind of, I've worked in Pro almost every spindle TV class and all. I just like to spread the wings a little bit and show a little bit of the other softwares and things as well. But if something is an Aspire feature, I will definitely make sure that I let you know that and everything. But basically kind of started out with a basic outline of a board, and then some compasses. And I want to kind of basically quickly kind of walk through the making of a compass, or something like that. For anyone that does have Aspire and wanted to make one or something, we might touch on that a little bit. And then, started building up the design more and more draft to the edges and everything, and then ultimately ending up with the letters. And above board was my choice of wording and stuff. And if you notice on these letters, they have a nice chamfer around all the edges. Now this is an Aspire function of doing something like this, and it's basically using the Create Shape tool within the Aspire, and when building the shape, using the angular profile and then limiting that height so it kind of flattens off at the top and it gives that nice chamfered edges. And with that technique, whether it's a curved profile or an angular profile, we can create rounded over edges, chamfered edges, and things like that. But I want to start off with the basics, and we'll end with kind of building a model and things like that. And I want to start off with the basics because I want to be able to build a design that everyone can do in Desktop Pro or Aspire, regardless of what you're using and stuff. There you go. William repaired an old picture with some gold leafing. There you go. And living in Florida, for me, I have on the West Coast, I've got the Gulf of Mexico, and then the Atlantic Ocean on the East Coast. And these nautical type signs are really popular and in a lot of demand. For you guys and girls, Bear and Lynn, that live over in the Tampa area, right off of Tampa Bay, and things, quarter boards are, they're pretty sought after and stuff. And quarter boards can go up to hundreds and hundreds of dollars. I've seen quarter boards sell for over $700 for a 48-inch by 5.5-inch quarter board sign with some nice gold leafing and things, but they're not cheap, and they're not the $20 or $40 sign that you would make for a craft show and stuff. When you make these and sell them, you can actually get some pretty good profit out of them and things and stuff. So what I'd like to do is let's go ahead and get back into our drawing tools. And what I'd like to do is start from scratch. And goodbye above board. And let's talk about my particular choice of job size and everything here. So basically, I'm doing a single-sided project with a job size of 36 inches in length, 6.5 inches wide, or 6.25 inches wide, if you will, and 3/4 inches thick. Now, if you have smaller CNC machines where the you don't have the capacity of doing a long board or something, that's where tiling comes into effect, and you can do tiling to get those long boards, and things to kind of exceed the capacity of the cutting capacity of your machine. And tiling is basically where you create your entire design. And when you create the toolpath for that design, you can actually break the toolpath up into sections. So it'll carve one section. When that's finished carving, you will move the board down to a particular point. Then it will carve the next section, move the board down, it'll carve the next section, and it'll carve these individual tiles depending on how many are required for your cutting area and stuff. And you can create a seamless carving and do a really nice job with tiling. So if you have a smaller CNC machine, don't be discouraged to try to, do longer projects and things and stuff. My larger quarter boards are about 48 inches long, and I only have a 40-inch cutting area, so I generally have to tile those. Tonight I've decided to kind of go 36 inches by 6.25, and 3/4 inches thick. Now, for this, I am going to, my job setup here, I'm going to be referencing off of my wasteboard. And we talked a little bit about this last week and everything. Oops, let me get back over here. We talked a little bit about this last week, whether you touch off on the surface of your material or your machine bed and things. it's basically kind of whatever your preference is. Now I'm going to be cutting out a profile, and I don't want to spoil my spoil board. So I typically work off the machine bed as Z0. So that way when it cuts, I'm guaranteed two things. One, I'm always going to cut through my material. And number two, I'm not going to cut into my wasteboard and everything. And because of my wasteboard being also a jig that clamps my material, my little 90-degree fence that's on it, I'm going to be working off the bottom left corner. Now, if you're curious about my particular wasteboard or my wasteboard design, there's a video in the Spindle TV gallery that says that's titled "A Versatile Wasteboard, Step by Step." And the files for that were designed for my table, a DWC 2440 digital wood carver, the design can be altered to fit your particular machine. And it really is a nice versatile wasteboard that offers all types of different clamping options: cam clamping, mechanical clamping, vacuum clamping, and things like that. So definitely check that out. It's called a versatile wasteboard, and it's in the channel's gallery of videos and stuff on Spindle TV. And if you looked at that, you would see how the fence and how all of my boards reference off to one corner of the table where I have a 90-degree fence. And so I work from the bottom left corner as my Z, or as my XY datum position and everything. And the project is going to basically, let me scroll down here. I'm just going to click OK, and we'll set that up. And James, let's see here. Bear with me a second. We're not going to recalculate the toolpath. It says, there you go. All right, James, let me just pop this up here real quick. He's apologized. He made a comment and then he had to leave last week, but he had forgotten the name of a gadget, and it's called the whole resize gadget, and it works great. Is that in the, James, tell us if that's in the gadget library, in the Vectric gadget library or something, or if that's a custom gadget that someone made and things, and you know, let us know for sure. The whole resize gadget. And I didn't do my homework, and I didn't go back and watch CNC Nuts video on his box method for resizing things. I wanted to get to that. I wanted to go watch that video again so I could share that with you, and unfortunately I did not. So I apologize. I may reach out to Peter and ask if I can kind of make a short little video showing that method, because I really like it, and see if I can share it with you guys and girls. If not, go check out Peter Pasquale's CNC Nuts channel. Great guy, very great guy. He lives on the other side of the lake, the pond. What do they call it? The other side of the pond, and everything. Okay, enough talking. We've talked so much now. Let's get back in there. And so James says that whole resize gadget is in the gadget libraries. For those of you that have access to the gadget library, you can definitely go check it out, and most likely you'll just click on about gadgets and it'll take you to the main sheet. I only have a few gadgets installed here, but it'd be the way to go. All right, so let's maximize the screen and let's jump right on into this, and let's start kind of laying things out. And one of the things that I want to talk to you about, or kind of demonstrate with you, is the fact of using shapes to create shapes and things. We're going to be making some decorative edges and stuff, and we're going to be using shapes to create shapes, if that makes sense. All right, let's get zoomed in nice and big here. And I'm also going to be referring to our clip art gallery that comes with each of our software and everything for making some different nautical themes and stuff. We all have anchors and seashells and things like that, and stuff that we can utilize. And we can also go to places like Etsy or eBay or designandmake.com and stuff, and find some cool nautical themed models, if you will. One of the models that I'm going to make available to you, and I'll just show it real quick. Let's see if I can bring it in. Import a model, and let me go and grab it real quick in my crazy library of files here. Let's bring this in. Is going to be this compass model, and I'm maybe going to kind of show how to make it, but I will, for those of you that do not have Aspire and can't build models, I'm going to make this available with this compass model here. I'm going to make it available with the class files for this class and all. So, and it's 24 inches by 24 inches, can be sized down to whatever size you want and all, but I will make this model available to you guys and girls. A little nautical compass going on there. Okay, let's scroll down here and cancel out of that. And let's get back to our 2D view. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at my clip art here, the stuff that comes with the Vectric software. And we're going to go down to objects and people. And I've got an anchor here. That's kind of nautical. If I scroll down, let's see here. I've got a flower maiden. That's not really nautical, but cool. I should have some seashells hiding in here. I got a ship's wheel. Let's drag a ship's wheel on here. We'll start with the ship's wheel. Let me get rid of these other models. Let's delete. I'm going to start deleting these models. So delete. I'll rebuild them later. Delete that one. Delete. We're working on it. We're working on it. Delete. And finally, delete. Okay. So I'm going to split the view here a little bit so we can see what's going on here. And right now, on the ship's wheel model, which is one of the models that's actually in your Vectric software and stuff, we're going to work with that. Now, one of the things that I would like to do is give the model a little bit of base, but I'm going to wait till I start laying out my cuts and everything. What I'm going to do is in the 2D view here, I'm going to go ahead and get it positioned about roughly where I want it. And I'm going to be cutting out a profile cut. So let me get it right about here. And then I'm going to go into my alignment tool over here and get it centered up and down. And it didn't move, so that must mean it's centered. Let's try that again. Yep. All right. So now that it's centered up and down in that position, I'm just going to mirror it to the other side. And it doesn't always have to be the same model on the same side and all that stuff. You know, it could be, you know, different and things, but usually there's some kind of consistent theme, if you will. So I'm going to go into the mirror tool. Let's go over to the drawing tab. Well, either mirror tool works. And I'm going to flip that horizontally. Oh, my nose itches. I don't know why my nose itches. All right. Now, within your Vectric software, when you have a model, one of the tools that you have is to create a vector boundary around that model, and it will create a trace outline in case you were cutting something out, you know, cutting a shape out or something, one of your model shapes and stuff. And in this case, if I were to create a vector boundary around my ship's wheel, it's going to outline the entire, you know, ship's wheel and stuff. And I don't want to do that. I'm just going to create a nice round end to this board around the ship's wheel and everything. So I'm not going to use the vector boundary, create a boundary around it, because I don't want the outline and all the spokes and all that stuff. So what I am going to do is I'm going to start off with my, let's get this centered up here. And I'm working in the top, I'm just, we don't actually need to be in the bottom view until I get things going. So let's get out of the split view. And by the way, to get out of the split view, you just maximize one or the other screen and go from there. All right, so with this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a rectangle. And I'm going to probably, I'm going to split roughly the ship's wheels in half. And let's get that centered, that rectangle. I'm going to use the alignment tool and get it centered side to side. Kind of get it roughly to where it, you know, splits that. I'm a little off on that. Here, that will drive me nuts. Let's get right about there. And let's look at this side and let's pull that out right about there. Okay. So I don't, because I want my board, I want to cut out a profile and I want some kind of shape to cut out here. I don't want my board, my rectangle to be the same width as my board. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold down my shift key and grab this middle block here and I'm going to pull it down a bit. Not much, just a little bit here, and everything, and we'll go from there. Now, I'm going to use my circle tool, and I want to basically kind of snap right to that center of that rectangle because it's also the center of my ship wheel. And I'm going to drag a circle out and basically just kind of outline. I want to give myself a little bit of room, kind of outline that ship's wheel, if you will. Ship's wheel, if you will. And then I'm going to mirror that to the other side. Just use my mirror tool and flip it horizontally to the other side. So I have those two things here. And now that I've got that, I want to kind of start laying out. Now, what I want to start thinking about is my transition. How I'm going to transition from this into this rectangle and everything, so it kind of has a nice appeal to it and stuff, because I'm going to have some text in here and I want my frame or my border to have some kind of nice little curve in and then come up and around. So let's kind of focus on one side for a minute and let's see if we can lay something out that would actually look pretty decent. I'm going to actually use my arc tool, draw arc tool over here. And what I'd like to do is probably right at this spoke here, I'm going to click my arc tool here and let me hit escape on that and open that back up. It snapped to that rectangle. Let's get right about there. And I want to come probably not too far, somewhere right about here, and create just a little bit of a cove to where it's gonna, that rectangle is gonna kind of transition and around. And when I'm happy with kind of looking at the one side, how that rectangle would transition into that circle, if I'm happy with that placement and everything with that arc, then all I'm going to do is come in and mirror that arc. I'm going to create a mirror copy, flipping it about job center. Let's move this over. And I'm going to flip it horizontally first, vertically, and then horizontally. So I have all four of them in the same relative position instead of redrawing them. And now I can come in with my trim tool, if you will, and start kind of cleaning things up. So I'll get rid of that middle line. And then we're going to come around and get rid of, not that line. We're going to come around and get rid of this line and this line and this here. We're going to come around and get rid of, let's zoom in, get rid of that. And then I'm going to, then of course I cut my cove. Let's back up one step there, Haas. I cut the wrong line. It's supposed to be that one there. And wait a minute. Let me back up. One more shot. There we go. I want to trim this one and this one. And then this and that. And then that middle. So that's going to kind of create that end cap, if you will. I'm going to repeat the same thing over here. Go ahead and trim that line. Come in and make sure I trim the correct lines this time. Get rid of these lines here. Trim that out. And then zoom in and trim away the proper lines here as well. So now I basically have the rough profile of my quarter board. And one of the things that we can do to kind of give this a little bit of depth, if you will, and so it's not, you know, sitting proud and things, is we could have left that circle that I had there as another vector to use for like a pocket cut and stuff. And I'll determine, we'll come back and visit that again if I determine that I'm going to need that additional vector. But we needed the one circle to do our trim to and everything. But then we could have copied and pasted it, or put it, that other, a copy of that on another layer so we could bring it back in later and stuff. But for right now, we'll just kind of stick with this. Now, within here, I want to create a frame. So we're going to have kind of a lip coming around and a frame and everything, kind of a within here with the same kind of curve. And so I'm going to use my offset tool, and I'm going to offset inward, and I'm probably, depending on the size of this, let's go a 1/2 inch, 0.5. I want to create sharp corners where there's sharp corners, and I want to select the new offset, and I want to kind of bring it in. And what this is going to do is this is going to create this frame. Now, what I want to do is basically get rid of that circular part of that offset. So I'm going to come in with my line tool, and I want to pick a pretty decent spot where I can just bring this transition just straight down and kind of square it off. And if I'm happy there with that position, then I'm simply going to mirror this over. I want everything to be kind of symmetrical on the other side. So I'm kind of working on one side and mirroring to the other. So everything kind of lays out in place. And now I can, once again, I can use my trim tool and just trim away that extra. And that's going to give me kind of that inner area for my text and things. Okay. Hopefully I'm not boring you guys to death, and things are going well. Hey, Troy, welcome, man. And all that. And Jim, welcome. Thanks for popping in. And all that stuff. Hey, John, good to see you. John D is here. Hopefully things are going well with that laser, buddy. All right. And so now that I've got an area for my text, that's kind of the next obvious thing, is to come in here, and we're going to draw some text. And now here's where I've got to come up with something crafty or creative. Now, normally, like in the modern age nowadays, in the modern age, we've got in the modern age now, we've got mostly it's house signs. You know, you're doing something decorative, and it doesn't necessarily have to have a nautical theme. It could be your street sign, it could be your house sign, it could be your family name, whatever the case may be. You know, it does not have to be, you know, nautically themed as far as the wording and stuff like that. But since we're kind of going somewhere, I'm going to basically, let's see if we can come up with something that is created. Let's see here. What do I want to do, ladies and gentlemen? What do I want to do? All right, let's get back to it and let's see if I can come up with something slick or not. Okay, sorry, I went quiet on you for a minute. Let's go. Oh, let me type over here. And all night in. All night in, having no night watches, basically, and everything. We'll kind of work with that. Now I'm going to take that text and stretch it out, and then I'm going to center it or make sure it's centered on my board. So I'm going to go into my alignment tool and align left to right to get it centered. All right, and let's see here. All night in. Tell me if I did okay with that one. How about putting a seagull in the middle? Yeah, Ronnie. Anything like that. You can do all kinds of things. With that nautical theme. Seagulls and what have you. We could make this board wider to where there's some kind of decorative element across the top. Like if we went into our clip art and let's go to decorative and let's pull down. Let's see if I got anything. I don't really have anything too decorative that would be a good example of what I'm trying to convey in this particular sign. Let's go and look here. Like a model or an outline of a ship would be pretty cool or something like that, but we'll go with this. Now, on this here, there are two ways to go. So I can do a V-carve raised effect to give the letters some raised look. What that would look like would be something like this. If I come over here and select my inside border and my text, V-carve toolpath, I'm going to create a flat depth, and we'll start at 0, and I'll do a flat depth of 1/8 of an inch. Kind of like 1/8 of an inch to maybe 0.15. That's kind of my magic go-to and stuff with these and everything. They look really good. I don't like going too deep because it kind of gets a little wider at the bottom, of that pocket and stuff on the letters and everything, the angles, depending on the bit you're using, of course, and stuff. It just doesn't appeal to me. So I usually go around 0.125, 1/8 of an inch to 0.15, 5/32, somewhere around there. So I'm going to use a 1/8 inch end mill to do some of the flat work around the letters, and we'll calculate this out. And if we were to preview the toolpath, that's the V-carve. Let me do the actual pocket with it. Preview the visible toolpath. Okay, now let's go in and revisit our depth, because we don't want to do that at all. Let's stop that because I done cut through my board. Let's make sure. Let's make sure. Let's come back in here and let's take a look at our start depth and cut depth and things, and let's look at, because we have a model in our material, let's look and see where we're positioned. And you see we're positioned at the bottom, and so it was cutting at the bottom of this. I need to bring the model to the top of my material, and that's going to bring all my cuts and everything to the top of the material and stuff. So once again, let's go in here and let's get rid of these pockets here. Let's get rid of this and that. Delete all visible. And let's recalculate these two toolpaths now that I've repositioned the models in the material. And let's take a look at that again. Let's come back in here, reset the preview, and preview the visible toolpath. And that's a little more like it. All right. We need seahorses, right? Yep, seahorses would work good, Tamara. Absolutely. Throw some seahorses and stuff in there. And everything. Now, if you look at my text and everything, my text is, you know, kind of starting down before it starts that 1/8 of an inch carve. It's kind of been, you know, positioned wrong, and we're going to figure out why. Let me come in here. Don't you guys start with me. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to my 2 models in my project. I like yelling at things. Got my ship's wheel. Let me go in and throw a starting at 0, a flat depth of 1/8 of an inch with 1/8 of an inch end mill. I'm going to raster. I like to raster. I like to cut with the grain so I don't have to do a lot of sanding. But let's recalculate and let's unproject this toolpath. We do not need to project it on the 3D model. And that's what my issue was, is it was projecting the cut down onto the lower part of the bottom of those ship's wheels, if you will. And so I don't want that. And while that's carving, I'm going to take a sip of my soda and we shall move on. All right, so now that looks better. The deeper we go, the more kind of pronounced and all the letters would look and stuff. But now we're also, this isn't going to be the finished deal. We're gonna do some texturing in here and kind of give this background some texture and stuff. But also, I want to do some inlay with you guys tonight, and I'd like to do a inlay part where we have one, you know, our main board, and then we have a contrasting materials where the letters are inlaid. And then we're actually going to V carve in that, and it's going to create that pinstripe line around the edges of the letters like you saw that were painted in that sample that I showed you, and everything. And for those of you that just arrived, let me pull that sample up one more time to show you what I'm referring to. See if we can pull that up. Now, in this particular image, we have some gold leafing. We have a nice V cut, but we have some, this is a pin line painting. So these, around these letters, it's painted with a nice black pinstripe. Well, I'd actually like to do that with an inlay with some contrast to give some contrast to stuff. So we're going to do it with an inlay so we can talk about inlays a little bit tonight and stuff too. I've got a pretty steady hand, not too steady, but you know, I wouldn't be able to pinstripe paint that very well. So, but I sure as heck can inlay to get that same effect. And I think it would actually give a little bit of a nicer tone and stuff too. But let's talk about this before we get into the ship's wheel and stuff. Let's talk about in here doing, maybe adding some texture to this. Now, one of my favorite textures is a texture that uses an 1/8 inch tapered ball nose. And we're going to start at 1/8 of an inch deep because that's how deep my pocket is. And one of my favorite textures is an 1/8 of an inch depth of cut with a minimum depth of, you know, around a 16th, you know, kind of let it default to that. My maximum cut length, I enjoy 1 inch. Overlap, I like the lines to overlap about 30%. And then I always step over half the diameter of the bit. And so I'm going to step over a 16th of an inch. And now on the angle, I like a nice little 10-degree angle on this. Now I don't want this texture coming up against my border. I don't want my bit hitting my border here or my letters. And so I'm going to stay away from my letters and border. I'm going to offset away from them by 1/8 of an inch. And if I determine when we preview this, if it's too far away, then I'll bring it in, but I'll bring it in gradually. But I usually start with about 1/8 of an inch. And this texture toolpath just gives that quarter board a little bit more character. And I'm all about wherever we can, you know, getting some character in here. And so we'll create a little bit of texture and stuff into the back of the board. And the reason why I like this is whether it's small scale or big scale, it kind of looks like a windy day on the ocean. This particular texture pattern, when we zoom in and everything, you know, it looks like the top of the water is just ripply and wavy and all that stuff with that 1/8 inch ball nose bit. And if we come in, you can kind of see that ripple wave effect, you know, and it just looks like a real choppy day on the sea type of thing. And it's one of my favorite textures to do with a quarter board, but it just gives it just a little bit of extra character to that sign. And the 1/8 of an inch was ideal for staying away from the border and my letters and everything. So now let's go back and now let's visit our 3D models. Now our 3D models are going to be cut in to this area here. But what I would like is I kind of honestly, to be honest with you, I would actually like to bring my board size up a bit to like a 1x8. So that would be 7 1/4 inches wide instead of 6 1/4. I want to give myself that extra inch. And I'm going to be cutting out of that 1x8. And let's go down and after making that quick change, I'm going to get everything centered back up on the material now. And I'll recalculate the toolpaths in a moment and stuff. But now with that, I can give myself just a little bit more space around these ship wheels and all, a little bit more of a gap, something kind of almost close to this. And so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take my border and offset it outward. Offset it outward. Oh, let's go an additional 1/8 of an inch outward. Create sharp corners where I can. Let's go a little bit more than that. Let's go 3/16. Yeah. Man, kind of. I'm torn. Let me delete the original. I'll be able to see better. Yeah, I'm going to go 1/4 inch. Okay. Because what I'd like to do is I'd like to bring that circle back in that we were talking about earlier and kind of bring it in to roughly here. Nice. And I'm going to mirror that over to the other side. Remember, I'm all about mirroring and things. I'm working on one side and then making everything symmetrical on the other. And then I'm going to take my ship's wheel and just ever so slightly bring it down in size a little bit so that the spokes aren't right up against the edge. And in this case, I'm going to just delete this and mirror that ship wheel over with that new size. Okay, because what I'd like to do is I want my ship wheels and everything. I want to be able to clear all this area out around them when it creates the model cut and all. I want to use these vectors as the boundary, if you will. I'll select those two vectors there. And let's go into our 3D finish. Now, these are quite shallow. These models, if I go into my material setup over here, the model thickness itself is only 0.22 and everything. So a little less than a 1/4 inch thick. You know, there's not a whole lot of thickness to them and stuff. And which I'm fine with. If I needed more thickness, then I could build up the base underneath. I could go into the properties of the model. Let's see, and I could give it a little bit of base height and kind of build those up if I wanted to kind of push them up a little bit or something, give them a little bit of meat. But I'm actually kind of good where it's at the 1/4, so we're not going to do that. But what I want to do is make sure that my models are at the top of the material. And my models have, let's go to the 3D view here. They have nice curves and contours and things, especially this little ball here. And I want to do my best to prevent any flat spots in my model. The top of my board is flat, right? I want to have to mill a little bit of material off before it starts shaping the model. So that way I won't get any flat spots, possible flat spots and things in my cut. So I'm just going to give this a small skin of 0.010 of an inch that'll have to be milled before it starts shaping that model. Very, very small skin of material above my model there. And now I can come back in and it's going to ask if I want to recalculate my toolpaths and stuff. And I'm going to say no for right now. I'll recalculate everything as I go through and stuff, but I'm going to go into my 3D finish cut. And this really doesn't warrant a rough cut. It's going to be a 1/4 of an inch deep. My ball nose bit is very capable of removing a lot of material and stuff. A 1/4 inch is going to be an aggressive cut. And one of the things that you have to remember is a finish cut does not do pass depths. It's not going to take 1/8 of an inch per pass. It's going to go straight to the bottom of that cut, and it's going to travel along that path, removing that material. Now, my first pass, as it's coming back and forth here, my first pass as it comes through, it could probably sound a little bit rough, you know, or what have you, but then it's only milling on one side of the bit as it's traveling back and forth to cut. And a 1/4 of an inch, it really isn't too bad of a cut. If you feel that it's too aggressive, you can always use a small end mill to do a rough cut to hog away the waste material and everything. Now I'm going to use the selected vectors as the boundary, and this is a very small ship's wheel, so I want to give it the best chance of having the best quality of detail. So I'm actually going to change from my 1/8 inch tapered ball nose to my 16th, and I even have a 32nd if I wanted to go down that small, but I believe my 16th of an inch ball nose is going to do good. And Dave says, I really like the texture on that lady. Thank you, Dave. I do too. It's one of my favorite textures and everything. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, in your texture toolpath, you have these two buttons, save and load. And if you ever create a texture that you really like, you can save it and it will save into your vector texture areas and stuff. And you could give it a name. Whatever the case may be, and save it there. And that way, if you wanted to bring a texture in, all you have to do is load those parameters right in. So you know, if you come up and, because how you change these numbers and the type of bits you use, V-bit, end mill, ball nose, what have you, that texture is going to create a different pattern. And you can come up with some very cool looks and everything and stuff. And you can save those. You can create a whole library of different texture patterns, texture settings, if you will, and use them in projects and stuff. I just wanted to share that since I got a compliment on my texture. Okay, let's get back to where we were. Let's get back into my 3D finish toolpath here. And so I'm going to use my 16th inch ball nose, and I'm going to use the selected vectors, plural, as the boundary for this. And I'm going to let it raster back and forth. I want to cut with the grain, as little cleanup as possible. And I'm going to go ahead and calculate this out. And while we do that, let's see if we have any questions at all. How about putting some seagulls in the middle? Okay, I already read that one. Seahorses, seagulls, seashells, mermaids. We need them all. Sirens, the siren song, you know. That's a good name for a quarterboard sign. Siren Island. Oh, that's a good one. All right. Let's go ahead and preview that. And what that should do is that should give me a nice little pocket. And I'm going to, when it's done previewing and everything, I'm going to look at my quality and I'm going to determine if I actually should go down to my 32nd inch tip bit and really knock the detail home and stuff. And this preview right now, the reason why it's so slow is in my toolpath menu. I've gone down to the preview simulation quality and I've got it turned up extremely high. So that way I get about a 98% representation of what my project's going to look like and stuff and everything. And I want to be able to see those tool marks and areas that I might need to address here before I go have to address it on the actual board that I'm carving and stuff, because I don't want to run these with a 16th inch bit and then have to rerun the same cut again with a smaller bit. If I was using Aspire, which I am, I could do what's called rest machining, to where I could use a bigger bit to do a lot of the main detail and then come back and do the rest of the design with the rest of the model with a smaller bit that'll go and just do the areas that the bigger bit couldn't fit. And I'll show you how to set up a rest machining toolpath if you have Aspire. I'll show you how to set that up here in just a second. All right, so let's actually kind of focus in on one, and let's kind of come in here. And the 16th inch bit actually doesn't look bad. I don't have a whole lot of tool marks or anything. My radiuses look good and all that stuff. The spokes and all look good. So I'm actually happy with that. We'll just leave that be and stuff. Now, man, I could almost go in and have it create the vector boundaries around it and then do the texturing toolpath in there and texture inside these little areas and stuff too. But I think that wouldn't be, I think it would just be a waste. All right, let's go in and let's preview all of our toolpaths together. All three of these. Let's go in and kind of preview this. And then we're going to change up our lettering and all. We're going to do the inlay and stuff. Yeah. So Jeff says, would you share the model number of the ball nose bit that you use? And it's a white side, 1/8 inch tapered ball nose bit. And if I'm not mistaken, it is the SC66. Let this texture run through and I'll take a look. We'll take a peek. But it's a white sided bit. And then we also, you know, I'll give you I'll give you an Amana 1/8 inch tapered ball nose and a white side. I'll give you the two tool numbers on that, Jeff, and guys and girls. All right, so let's take a real quick look at my tool database here. And I've got a bad habit of not writing down my tool numbers. All right, stand by. I'm going to create a new material. I'm going to call this DWC tool library. You're getting a quick lesson in how to add a new tool library inside of your tool database. I'm going to import a file into that tool library. And let's go into Documents, Planet CNC 2020. I'll just grab this setup file, Profile Tools. Okay. And here's the tool library. Let me drag it up. And let me drag you up. Drag you up. Okay. And so the white side, 1/8 inch tapered ball nose. All right, let's do the Amana one first. The Amana 1/8 inch tapered ball nose is tool number 46286, and the white side tapered ball nose number. Somebody probably beat me to it already. Let's see here, around a bit. Eighth inch is SC66, so I was correct. It's the SC66 for the white side bit. Okay. All righty. Let's get back to here. Now let's get. Let me get a profile cut going. And what I'd like to, I kind of want to. Let's do a profile cut on this. It's kind of missing something, but let's do a profile cut. And I'm going to cut all the way through the material. I'm going to use a 1/4 inch end mill. And outside of the cut, or outside of the vector, I'm going to cut. I'm not going to add tabs, so I can remove the border around the edge. So we'll let that preview out. And I think it's the beech wood that's throwing me off. We'll change that up to like a white oak or a cherry or something. But white oak, by the way, would be a good outdoor version of the sign. And looky there. What is wrong with that picture? Right? It's off. So when I calculated the tool pass, and remember when it asked me if I wanted to recalculate the tool pass, I didn't. I said no, being stubborn. I said no, I'll do it later, and I didn't, and then it cut wrong. All right, let it go through and calculate this final profile, and we'll reset that. So while it's doing that, for those of you that have questions, I'm sorry, I'm pausing. I had to think about what I was trying to say. For those of you that have questions, go ahead and type them in the comment section. That's what it's here for. This is all about learning and asking questions and things if you have any. And definitely ask them. I'd be happy to answer them. All right, let's preview all the tool pass. Let's get that done one more time, and then we'll move on. Now, while that's happening for us, I'm going to think about how I want to do this inlay. I'm definitely going to change the font. I think the font's definitely going to need to be changed to do this inlay. And then we're going to do a V carve inlay method. And basically what we're going to be doing is we're going to be using a V bit to create the female pocket, and then out of a contrasting piece of material, the male. And it's going to be done in stages. So once that female and male are cut and everything, that's going to be glued in, inlaid, and then it's going to be milled off and kind of flushed up, if you will. We can use our CNC for that. But then we're going to come back and have this board back on the table, and we're going to carve inside of that inlay to create that V cut, and that should give us a nice outline rim. Now, when I'm doing something like that, if I have to take the board off the table, and like with me, I have a fence, so if I take my board off my table, I'm able to put it right back where it goes and stuff. But if you don't have any kind of fence or anything like that set up, alignment pins work out great. You could just drill 2 holes through your wood and into your wasteboard, and you can use alignment pins to make sure that that board goes right exactly back where it was before. And it's different. It's a different method. You guys hear me talking about alignment pins, when we're doing 2-sided jobs and stuff, where I only carve through halfway through the board on, a certain depth in the board on one side, and then I carve into the wasteboard for the pins on the other. Well, in this case, I'm putting the board in the same position face up. I'm not flipping it or mirroring it or anything. And I'm going to be working off of that same process, because it won't take long for the project to dry and stuff. So I'll be able to put the board back on and do the V cut within it rather quickly. So on here, could probably do something a little bit more elegant with the border and stuff. Maybe even some texture in there, kind of get some texture in there behind the ship's wheel or around the ship wheel would be good. But let's see if we give this some kind of color. Let's give it nice cherry wood. And let's go with a nautical blue. Actually, let's kind of simulate if it was gold leafed. Yeah. Could use some work on that. But this is a very basic looking sign. A nice chamfer around the edge is what it's missing. I knew it was missing something. Let's chamfer the edge. So I'm going to use the same profile. I'm going to go a profile toolpath, and I'm going to go with I'm going to go about 1/4 of an inch deep with a 90-degree V-bit. And I'm going to be on the outside of the line, but I'm going to step in towards the line negatively. Let's go 3/16. And let's calculate that. And let's see how we do here with that chamfer. Yeah, I'm a little thin. This is what I'm looking at here. I'm a little thin right here in this area and stuff. And so I may want to be mindful of that and give this a little bit more room in here and things, so I'm not so thin, because I may also want to take my circles here. Man, I wonder if I can do that. I wonder how close I could get without cutting into my... Let's take the circles here. I'll do one. We'll see how that looks. And I'm going to do a profile cut on this on the inside of the line. Not 1/4 of an inch deep. Let's step down maybe a 1/16 of an inch, if that. Because remember, the deeper we go, the wider the V-bit gets, and I don't want to hit my ship spokes here, my handles. And we'll go a 1/16 of an inch, and I'll offset a negative 1/4 of an inch. Let's see, that might be too much. Let's take a look. And I'm going to, before I preview it, I can come into my 2D view and turn on my wireframe mode and see where I'm cutting. So it's gonna basically be way back there. So a 1/16 of an inch, maybe too much. So let's go, or a 1/4 of an inch, maybe too much. I maybe only need to offset inward. Let's cut that in half, 1/8 of an inch. Negative number when you want to go over the line. 1/8 of an inch, and let's give ourselves a little bit more depth. I don't want to push it too much. I'm going to go 0.1. Calculate that. I'm going to look at it in the 2D view, and there we go. So my bit won't come in and hit that ship's wheel, but what it's going to do for me, what it should do for me, is break that edge. So if we preview that, it should break that edge ever so slightly, giving it a nice little chamfer in and everything. So it's not just so square. I can actually even see I'm getting thin here. This is what, I kind of want to keep a consistency of gap space between here and there. And that's important in my drawing to know. I'd have to come and change the way this curves slightly just to give myself a little bit more meat in this area. But I kind of like the way that looks. Now, just out of curiosity, since we're kind of doing things on one side and not the other, I'm going to go ahead and take and do a little bit of texturing in here just to see if I would like the way that it would look with just a little bit of texture in there around the model. And it'll give you kind of an idea of how you would do it. So I'm going to come in to my model and make sure I select the correct one. And I'm going to create a vector boundary. And what that's going to do, that's going to create all of these boundaries right here for me. And I'm going to select this vector as well. And now I can come in with my texturing toolpath. And on this one, I'm going to use my 32nd inch ball nose. It's a real small area, so I'm going to use my 32nd inch ball nose. And I'm going to kind of start at 1/8 of an inch. That's not true. I'm not going to start at 1/8 of an inch. I've got to come in here and look at where my cut is. So if I come in here and look at my job setup, my cut depth is 0.2274. So that's the bottom of the model down here, 2278, plus 0.01. So for me, that would be 0.2278 plus 0.01 would be 0.2378 would be the depth, the start depth on here. Now for me, since I'm working off the bottom, when I move them, if I come into the 3D view, you're going to see where it says 0.5122 for me, but that's not your cut depth. But if I were to look at this and it's, it's previewed and all, if you look down at the very bottom of the screen down here, as I move the mouse in there, that 5.5122 plus, a little extra gives me 0.5123 and everything. And so my texture needs to start at 0.22. Oh, shit. I am so bad with remembering numbers, just that quick. 0.2278, so 0.2378. I got to add that 10,000ths of an inch there, 0.2378. So my texture is going to start there, 2378. Maximum cut depth, I'm not going to cut that deep. Let's cut it in half to about a 1/16 of an inch. Just a very subtle, texture. I can't get a 1-inch cut out of there or anything. So let's go 1/2 inch. That's maximum. And I'm going to try to keep the rest the same. And let's see how it does. Now, I want to stay a certain distance away from my model. I don't want my bit hitting my model or my border. So I'm going to go a 32nd. 03125. And let's calculate this texture and let's see what it looks like. And while it does that, let's go ahead and answer some questions. Dave says, Laney, when you were showing the finished toolpath, I think you said you were using a 16th inch ball nose. I thought it was a 32nd, 0.031. No, great question there, Dave. What Dave is referring to, if we close this preview for just a moment and we go into my 3D finish cut, notice my tool right here says tip 0.031. If I go in to edit this tool, the tip's radius is a 32nd, 0.03125, and it rounds it up to 0.0313. The radius, the tip diameter is a 16th of an inch. So it's a 16th of an inch tapered ball nose that has a radius of 0.031. And my 32nd inch bit that I'm using has a tip radius of a 64th with a diameter of a 32nd. Great question, Dave. So, because a lot of people probably saw that same thing and were wondering why I was calling it a 16th of an inch ball nose when it had a 32nd inch radius. Tamara says, the shell is in the clip art decorative folder called a scallop shell. All right, well, that will be our next one. We'll do a scallop shell with the next model. And a great question here is, can you dish under the ship wheel? Absolutely, because if we go and look at our clip art library, that's layers. If we go and look at our clip art library and we come down to the objects and people, oh, there's skulls. There's all kinds of things, man. That's piratey, but there's a ship wheel in a cove right there. I could have used that instead. Absolutely. Never finished. All right. So great questions so far. Okay, now here's the truth of the matter. Let's see what this, if this texture is gonna make it or break it. Giving a little bit of texture body around the ship's wheel. Let's see if it's going to add to it or take away from it. Let's go ahead and preview that. And so if we zoom out, I don't know, let's take a poll in the chat, with or without texture on the ship wheel. Might be a little bit too busy. Might be able to change the angle of that texture and all, but if we were to look at that. Now imagine the ship's wheel is not going to be the same color wood, guys. The ship's wheel, we're going to gold leaf that. We're going to paint it or something. You know, you're going to be really delicate when you paint it. Try to paint on the lines. Or we could add some nice little glue, and it's going to be gold or gilded or something, you know. Think about that. All right, so I think that's enough. Without. All right, without. Everybody's like, without, too busy. Without. All right, I agree. But hey, we had to just see what it would look like. I agree, it's too busy. So we're going to delete that texture. All right, let's go ahead and let's revisit this. Let's delete this all together. All right. Okay, I'm going to put it on another layer because I'm going to save some of these project files for you guys. Move to layer, new layer. This is going to be sign 1. And I'll turn that layer off, invisible, turn it off. And let's start with sign number 2. All right, we're going to use the seashells this time to really make it kick. And then we're going to do the inlay, V-carve inlay. Let's go to our clip art library here. And let's go under decorative. I think she said it was under decorative. And I don't have all my models here. Let me see what Tamara said. She said it's under decorative and it's called a folder called scallop shell. It's called scallop shell. I do not think I have that in my particular gang of models here. I might have. They might not have just loaded. Hold on a second. We're getting somewhere. There we go. All right. Perfect. Bam. Okay. All right. Now, I'm going to take this model. Let's rotate it. I'm going to hit the number 9 key on my keyboard and rotate it, hitting the number 9 key twice. Rotating it each time you hit the number 9 key, it's a counterclockwise rotate of 45 degrees. 0 key on your keyboard is a clockwise rotation of 45 degrees. All right, let's go ahead and let me get this centered up here and sized appropriately. Okay, let's go ahead and go into the mirror tool and let's mirror that horizontally. Awesome. All right, now on this one, I definitely want to outline. I want my board to have that kind of scalloped cut on the end of the seashell and everything. It's going to look really nice when it's gilded or painted, or what have you. So I'm going to go back into my modeling tab and I'm going to create the for the models. You don't have to do one at a time. You can do 2 at a time. Okay. And so my border is going to tie into that scallop shell and everything. Let's go ahead and get, speaking of border, let's get our rectangle going on here. Let's get our groove on. And I tell you what, let's see here. All right, let's do some internal radius corners. Let's go 0.75. That's a little too small. Let's go big or go home. Let's go 1.5. There we go. All right, and let's get that. Let's make sure that rectangle is centered on the board. And that should line me up pretty darn close to that there. You can kind of see where we're heading with this. Use my scissor tool and trim away that line and hold on it. Let me ungroup. And it looks like I've got I have a duplicate vector. Let me undo this. Okay, I had a duplicate vector. So let me redo this one. There we go. I had a duplicate vector going on and I didn't want to screw up. All right, so we're going to cut and trim away that line, this line, and this line. And so that's going to create our border all the way around here and everything. On this, let's give ourselves a little bit of an arch. I'm going to go into node editing mode. And I'm going to, before I go into node editing, I'm going to grab from here 7, 9, let me see if this works out in my favor here. Seven, 8, 9.766. That'll be fine. So if I go new position 29 minus 2.766 was it, I believe, equals 26, and click apply, and that should move that one over to the same distance there. 7766 minus 2.7766 equals apply. Okay, so that way I'm the same distance over. And what I'm going to do in node editing on this point here, I'm going to insert I'm going to node editing, select this, and I'm going to insert a point. And I was slightly off, so I'm going to drag that point over there. Okay. And I'm going to insert a point. Man, I'm slightly off today. Hold on a second. Let me drag that over. All right. Zoom in and drag your butt over there. Okay. And that way I can take this line here and I'm going to turn it to an arc. Ooh, not that big of an arc. And we're going to scale it down a little bit. Now this is going to require me to have a larger board, a little bit larger board and stuff. And then I'm going to come in what's going to be the best way for me to do this? Bear with me a second. There's a method to my madness. 13. Center. Make a parallel guide. I'm going to go 2 inches to the right, 2 inches to the left. It's not enough. Not enough. Hold on a second. Let me go 3. Relative guide. Let's go 3 inches to the left. That's a negative number. That looks good. And then take away that minus sign and go 3 inches to the right. I'm going to take my arc tool. Pull that up 180 degrees. Let's turn off those guidelines for a minute. This will make sense here in a second. I'm going to use my fillet tool now, and I want a nice big radius. Let's go 3/4, and I should be able to fillet that. That's not enough. Hold on a second. Let's go 1.5. Not enough. Hold on a second. Go 2.5. Well, that doesn't look good at all. That didn't look good at all. Sorry, guys. I just wasted about 20 minutes of your time trying to figure that out. I want a, I would love to, what I'm thinking is somewhere in here, nice little curve with like a compass or something up here. I don't know. Anyway, it's all subjective to your design taste and all that stuff. All right, let's offset this inward. Sorry to waste your time on that one. I thought there was going to be a different look. Let's offset this inward. Let's go 3/8 of an inch. Put a decimal in there. Create sharp corners and not enough. Let's go 3/4. That's enough. Once again, just like I did before, we're going to kind of straighten this out. But what I also kind of like to do is maybe have the maybe have it follow that. So let me undo that offset, and I'm going to come back in here, and I'm going to create an offset 5/8, 0.625. I'm going to take and retrace my shells here with the modeling border. That's going to give me this bottom line here that I'm looking for. I'm going to go in and trim away with my scissors. We'll trim away that it's grouped. Can't ungroup that. We'll trim away this outside border. Oops. Why are you deleting on me? Oh, yeah. This will make sense here in a second. Let's trim away this inside border first. There we go. Trim away this line right there. There we go. This line right there. Over here, same thing. Trim away this, this, and that. And now that duplicate that, you know, what's around my edge, I'm going to just delete that. Delete that. Now I've got this shape here, border, and now I'm going to offset it that extra 1/8 of an inch inward. Oops. Deleting the original. There we go. So that way my pocket will kind of follow that curvature a little bit. Now my router's not going to be able to get in there. I'm going to be using a 1/4 inch or an 1/8 inch end mill. I'm not going to get a nice point there and all, but I really don't want a nice point, even if it rounded off and stuff. And if I wanted to preempt that, I could use my fillet tool and put an 1/8 of an inch radius in here, which is half the diameter of the bit I'm going to use. And I could, you know, already go in there and start work for me. Round that off, you know, how it's going to be. Either way, 6 1/2 does another. The router's going to do it, or you're going to do it in your design. If it won't let you, you know, do what you need to do, zoom into it. Zoom into it. All right. So what this is going to be my pocket where my inlays and everything are. And I'm going to kind of do it down in. So even though I'm not doing raised letters, I still want to have a little bit of a recess in here. So my first toolpath, before I create my text, and we'll create the text in a second, but the first toolpath is going to be a pocket cut, basically. And the model's fine at the top. We'll give it a little 0.010 of an inch skin there. It's always going to ask you to look at your material setup in most cases and everything and stuff. So I'm going to do a pocket cut, and I'm only going to cut down a 1/16 of an inch, just a small amount to create a little bit of a lip. 0.0625. And I'm trying to not do this too confusingly for you guys. And I know I probably lost some of you, and we're going to answer some questions. I'm going to use my end mill, 1/4 inch end mill. And I'm going to raster, calculate that pocket, and let's reset this back to a blank board. And this is going to create a little recess for my letters and everything. All right, let's come back over here and say, right, Baron says, if I update my software, I got an update available over there in that top corner. I'd probably find the rest of my models. They're spread out. I've got Aspire, VCarve Desktop, and VCarve Pro, so I can teach you guys in all of them, and work in all of them and stuff. And everything we're doing here is all VCarve stuff. I mean, everything we're doing, I have not done anything that is Aspire required. You know, everything that I'm doing in here can be done in any of the 3 software, and I'm trying to keep it somewhat casual for that purpose. All right, so basically I'm just creating a small 1/16 of an inch cut just to create a little bit of a lip. I might even go 1/8 of an inch depending on how it looks, but let's get our text in here, and let's start laying out our inlay. All right, so for this, we got to come up with a new name. Let's see here. Let's go. I'm kind of wondering if I do want to do all cap. Yeah, I'll do all capitals. All right, let's get it centered on our board, and then we'll change the font and stuff. So for this, there's a really nice, I don't have that font on this computer, unfortunately, but there's a really nice kind of piratey looking font that would probably look good. And unfortunately, I do not have it and everything. And since I'm working in all capitals, a script font won't look too fond. So let me grab a font real quick that has a little bit of appeal to it. I want to stay away from fonts with these skinny lines, which is not a problem. You can still do it, but me personally, I want to kind of stay away from that. All right, let me get down to my almost there. Last one, Rockwell is going to be my choice. Okay, we'll go with Rockwell. All right, let's get this size down. To fit in there, and then I'm going to come in and stretch this out. So I'm going to grab, let's center it first, alignment tool up and down. And I'm going to grab the ends, hold the shift key down, and just pull it out a little bit more here, and then pull it up a little bit. Okay. Okie dokie. All right. So here we go. We're going to do an inlay. With this, we have to have a second layer. So I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm going to call this my, I'll create a new layer altogether. This is going to be my female inlay. And then I'm going to have a layer for my male inlay. This method that we're going to be using is going to be a V-carve inlay using a V-bit and everything. So we get those nice sharp corners and stuff in there and everything. So with that, let me once again make sure I'm centered. I don't know why my eyes are playing tricks on me today. Yeah, okay, I'm centered. All right, so we're going to come over and we're going to create our toolpath. Now, remember, I pocketed out a 1/16 of an inch. Okay, so I've got to kind of start at that 1/16 of an inch so it's down in there and everything. So it's going to be a V-carve inlay, and my start depth is going to be a 1/16 of an inch. Okay, down in the bottom of that little pocket that I cut out. Now, my cut depth is going to determine on how deep I want this inlay. And now I'm going to be V-carving this. Okay. And so to create that kind of outlined effect, if I were to just straight V-carve this, and let's just straight V-carve this for a minute, no flat depth, no tool, 60-degree V-bit. I'll probably end up using a 90 on this. 60 might be too deep. Let's calculate this. And yeah, so to V-carve this, it would take, you know, a thicker piece of material with my 60-degree V-bit. So we're going to switch up to the 90. And we'll calculate this so we can get that 90-degree. Now, let's give this some color so we can kind of get some, let's give this some color so we can kind of get a little idea of what's happening here. Let me paint it black here. So basically what I'm doing here is I'm kind of V-carving this to look and see exactly about how deep it's going to cut. And my O and my P right here, probably going to be my deepest cuts and things. Let's go to the O. And if you, let me turn off the color here. If you put your mouse, and it's an optical delusion, it looks like it's raised up, but it's not. But if you put your mouse down into the cut, it'll show you down here your depth of cut and everything. And about my widest area, I mean, I am probably about 0.42 inches deep. About 3/8 of an inch deep and stuff. You have to remember on my numbers, they're backwards. So 0.75 is the top of my board. 0.6875 is that pocket, right? So down here, I have to do the math. I'm looking at 0.3465 from, you know, 0.6875. I'm about 0.3 inches deep in things. And so that will be, you know, roughly how deep I want to, you know, not roughly how far I want to V-carve this, but I'm going to start the inlay toolpath, the female. Let's get into the female toolpath here, or layer. And I'm going to start at that 1/16 of an inch, so it's down in the pocket. And I'm going to only cut down to 0.3. Okay. I'm going to cut down 0.3 from that 0.625. And I'm going to calculate that. Reset this and preview that toolpath. Okay. Let's get that pocket, kind of mill that down. All right. So that's going to be my female pocket inlay that my male is going to go into. So now I'm going to take my design here. I'm going to copy it to the male inlay layer. I'm going to come in here and turn off the female. Oh, do I not have anything on the female? Hold on a second. Copy the female. Okay. We'll turn off everything else for right now. So we just have this. So in my male, this is going to get mirrored. Mirrored, not a copy, just mirrored. And then I'm going to put a boundary. I'm going to put a boundary around this. No corners, just a regular square block boundary. And my male toolpath. And let's revisit the female for a minute so you can, you know, where we're at. And I'm going to write these numbers down. So I started at a 1/16 of an inch. So I've got to add that into my male as well. Now, if we were starting at 0, it'd be 0, right? But I've got that little pocket. So I've got to add that into my male cuts as well. So basically from that 1/16 of an inch, I'm cutting down 0.3 inches. All right. Now on my male toolpath, I'm going to add in whatever I put in here, not counting if you kind of ignore the 16th for a minute, whatever I add to this 16th in this box here, it's got to equal 0.3. And sometimes you'll see on videos on YouTube where they split it, you know, 0.15, 0.15, you know, for a total of 0.3 and things like that. But what that ends up doing is it gives you a very shallow inlay, and you have a big wide glue gap kind of in between the bottom of this cut and where the other inlay kind of stops when the two parts fit together. So if I could illustrate this, imagine that, let's delete that span and let's pull that out. Pull that out. Imagine that I have my female cut here. You really got to use your imagination because I can't draw angles, right? Imagine that's my female cut. That's what my letters are cut to right now. And the male, control, the male is going to start at a certain depth so that it actually gets wider in the cut. So if I were kind of widen this out a little bit, if you will, when those two parts fit together, and they will fit together, ignore my drawing, but there's a big glue gap. If I kind of split it half and half, there's a big glue gap. And what my goal is to get a minimal, if I can move up just a little bit there, buddy. Oh, terrible, just terrible. What my goal is so that this part fits in there. Let's see if I can make it look like it's going to fit in there. Put this one in and pull that in. So my part's going to slide in, and when it stops, as far as it can go, I want a minimal glue gap in there because I'm going to be V carving this again a second time. And the last thing I want to do is cut through and have a big old hole right there, you know, in the bottom of my V cut and stuff. It's going to look like crap. and everything. So what my goal is I got to equal 0.3, no matter what, 0.3 from that 16th of an inch. So I'm going to add in to this 16th because I got to start there anyway. That's what my little pocket is. I'm going to add in 0.28 that. That's where I'm going to start. And then I'm going to finish 0.02. 0.28 plus 0.02 equals 0.3. Okay. The 16th of an inch, I have to start that there because I've already pocketed down a 16th. And so what that means is I'm going to use the same 90-degree V-bit. I don't have to use a clearance tool. There's not a whole lot of clearance work and stuff, but you know, I might just add one in just for time's sake, and it's going to be a small one, 1/8 inch end mill. And out of a contrasting piece of wood, I'm going to calculate this tool path, and I'm going to cut this piece. My 1/8 inch bit will come in and flatten all the work that it can. Then my V-bit's going to come and cut. Okay. I'm going to take this piece over to my bandsaw, if you will. Let me see if I can demonstrate this. Don't pay any attention to what I'm doing right now. I'm just creating an offset. Creating an offset of this border, so I can do a profile cut to cut away the material. But I'm going to take a bandsaw. I'm going to take it over to my bandsaw, and I'm going to cut away this lip that's around here. And of course, I did it with a damn V-bit, like with an end mill, Laney. Ignore the V groove in the bottom of that cut. But anyway, shit, that's looks crazy. Anyway, I'm going to cut the lip away. So I just had this piece, and that piece is going to flip over. Oh, I wish I could flip that much better, but it's going to flip over and it's going to go into my female pocket. And for starting, you know, here and things, and then coming down and cutting, I'm an idiot. I'm a dumb. Oh, why didn't somebody catch me? Why didn't somebody catch me? Explain this. All right, guys. On that V-carve toolpath, I'm cutting that out of a contrasting piece of material. It's not going to have the 1/16 of an inch pocket in there. I'm cutting this out. My inlay's got to fit down in the pocket, so I don't count that 1/16 of an inch in the mill. So I'm going to cut to a total of 0.28 with a flat depth of 0.02. I don't need to add that 1/16 of an inch in there. I don't know what I was thinking, because this is getting cut out of a contrasting piece of wood, and it's going to fit down into that little pocket down there. The inlay's down in the pocket. I don't need to add that in. Oh my goodness. Tamara, I can see you. All right, perfect. Okay. So I'm going to have this piece here, and it's going to fit into that female pocket. When it does, there's going to be a little bit of a gap and all. I'm going to take and clamp the board, the whole, quarter board with that in there back on my CNC table. And I'm going to mill the top surface of this. Let's flip it over. So it'll be inside the inlay. And I'm going to mill the top surface of this all the way down to my inlay. Hopefully you guys got that. One of these days we'll do a project on a V-carve inlay. Now, once I have that inlay put in there, glued in, milled down, and reflushed up and everything, so I have my inlaid letters, now I'm going to come back and create the V-carve. And on this V-carve, let's turn off that mill inlay and get back to here. On the V-carve of the letters, it's just going to be a regular V-carve. And I'm going to cut this starting at a 1/16 of an inch, because I got to start at that pocket on this one I do. A little recess done screwed everybody up. And I'm going to limit the cut on this. Or I'm not going to limit the cut on this. I'm going to just cut all the way down, V-carve all the way down. But the question of the day is Lainey, if you go back and V-carve that, isn't it just going to cut away what you just inlaid? Isn't all of those letters getting V-carved right to the line? Where's it going to show your pinstripe? And I'm going to say, you're absolutely right. Because what I should have done was offset the letters. Oh, Jesus. Oh, geez. Okay. We're starting over, not starting over, guys, but real quick, I need to offset these letters for this first inlay. I got to offset them outward. I got to make them a little bit wider for the inlay. And I'm an idiot. I didn't do that. And so let's go ahead and quickly do this. I'm going to offset them outward. It all depends on how thick of a band I want around the letters and everything. And I'm only going to offset outward a 32nd. I'm such an idiot. Oh, 0.03125. I'm trying to show you guys something nice, and I messed it all up. I'm going to offset it outward a 32nd. And get out of that mill inlay. Make sure your layer's active when you're working in it. Okay. And then I'm actually going to do that in both directions. I'm going to offset in both directions a 32nd. That'll give me a 1/16 of an inch. Okay. So imagine this band here is going to be my inlay band, right? So I'm going to go both ways and delete the original. Okay. And delete this. So this is these outside vectors here. These outside vectors. Those are going to be my inlay. The inside vectors are going to be my V cut. So that way I get that nice little 1/16 of an inch band around everything. Okay, so let me go through and do this properly. I'm going to offset outward a 30-second, select new. Okay. On those vectors that are selected, I'm going to quickly right click and move them to a new layer. And I'm going to call this my female inlay. Just so I have something different. We're going to make those red so everybody can see them. Okay. Now off of my font, I'm going to offset that inward. And this time I'm going to delete the original. I'm going to offset inward and delete the original. Okay. Select the new. Oh, it's not going to let me delete the original because it's a text, so that's okay. It didn't delete the original. And everything. And this one, this guy here, I'm gonna while it's still selected, I'm gonna right click and I'm gonna move that to a new layer, and this is gonna be called my carve vectors. We'll make them blue. Okay. The black is my original text. So I'm going to delete that now. And you're going to see the blue is going to get carved. The red is what's getting inlaid. So I need to turn off that layer for a moment. Turn off that layer. Turn my mel on. Turn this off. And I need to delete my mel. Because the female inlay fix vectors is what's going to get copied over to that male inlay. And I'm so sorry, guys. This has probably lost you all. Imagine if we were starting from scratch right now. I've got my text. I just offset it outward by a 30-second. Then I offset it inward, the same text, and inward by a 30-second to create that 1/16 of an inch little lip. That inlay lip, that nice little colored lip. So in my mel inlay here that I've just copied over, make sure that layer is active. And I'm going to mirror this. It's got to be reversed. Okay. Now I'm going to come in and carve this. And the cut has to start at that 1/16 of an inch. And let's get rid of the 1/16 of an inch for a minute. We're not going to create that recess so it's not confusing for you. My cut depth on my female is going to be a 0 cut depth. I'm going to be cutting down to 0.3 inches deep with a 90-degree V-bit, no end mill. Okay. And that's going to be on my female inlay vector. Which is right here. Female inlay fix. All right. Cutting to 0.3, 90-degree V-bit. Call this my female carve inlay. All right, let's reset this back. That's going to be my V cut for the female pocket of the inlay. And Mike, that's exactly what I'm creating is a pinstripe. But I'm creating a pinstripe with the inlay. And I understand what you're saying about using the profile toolpath to create a pinstripe around the outer edges of the letters and things, but then I'd be V-carving that also. If I try to use an end mill, then I'm going to get rounded inside and outside corners and stuff, and it's not going to come out well. All right. So that's going to be my female inlay. Now I'm going to turn that layer off, delete this one so we don't get confused with it. I'm going to turn my male on and make sure it's active. And I'm going to select my male inlay. What other layers do I have open? Let's turn those off. My male inlay is going to be cut out of a contrasting piece of material. I'm going to put a boundary around it. And that male inlay is going to be a V-carve inlay, and it's going to start at 0.28 inches deep and cut to a depth of 0.02. Those two numbers added together total 0.3. Okay, I'm going to use my 90-degree V-bit and an 1/8 inch end mill to assist me with this. And we're going to calculate this toolpath. That is going to create out of a contrasting square little board or something. It's going to create this raised male version, the male version. Going to take that over to the bandsaw, cut off these excess edges and everything so I can fit that and glue that into my female. Now, once that's glued in, then I'm going to take it back to the table, and I'm literally going to mill that surface down until I'm flush with my original board. In that, on that original board and all. I'm not going to cut too deep, and that'd be a pocket toolpath. And once I did that, get rid of that male and turn this back on. Now I'm going to have my regular normal font that I offset inward. That is going to be just a standard old V-carve toolpath. No flat depth, starting at 0, 90-degree V-bit. I'm going to calculate that. And when those letters get V-carved in, these letters would be painted, they would be gilded, they would be something. And, we go from there. Now, can I simulate? I haven't done the profile cut and the model cut yet either. But can I simulate out of this, can I simulate that inlay as far as the little banding around here? Let's find out. If I come in to this, .3D view, if I got all these toolpaths here, whoo doggy. On this cut here, I'm going to give that toolpath color gold. Okay. Now, my female V-carve inlay. Let's see if we can. It's going to look like crap, but let's see if we can preview that. This is going to be a hard one to simulate, but we'll give it a shot. All right, let's, yeah, that one's going to be a hard one. Let's give that a color of black. Yeah, that didn't work out like I planned. Oh, hold on. That's gold. Give that one a color of black. Well, you son of a gun. Gold. Give that one a color of black. Turn that toolpath off. And it's a very bad simulation, unfortunately, because it didn't have that fill in. But you get the idea. It's not going to look like that when it's done, I promise. It'll look good. Oh, Jesus. All right. Let's go ahead and let's finish up this project here. Let's turn on our layer 1 with our nautical shells. And let's create our 3D model. And on our 3D model, I don't need to cut all of this waste material when I'm, doing this 3D model here. I don't need to, deal with all that. So we're going to quickly create a new layer. Call it the model boundary. I'm sorry, guys, that doesn't look, it doesn't come out explaining correctly, but it actually looks, it would look very good. All right, on my models, I'm going to, in that model boundary, I'm going to create my set of vectors there, and that will allow me to turn off, my layer 1, and I've got these vectors right here that I can select. And I want to create a 3D finish cut, and on this, probably don't need a 3. Let me just see how thick the model is before I can determine if I need a. So the model is about 3/8 of an inch deep, so I will do a rough cut. We're going to do a 3D rough cut. I'll use an 1/8 inch end mill. Could even do a 1/4 inch end mill, but we'll do an 1/8. Selected vectors is the boundary, and we'll calculate that. Okay, let's reset this back to, and let's preview that rough cut. Oh, man. I probably could have used a 1/4 inch end mill. Oh, that's all right. We're here now. Okay. All right. Let's get this out of Cherry and back to a beach so we can kind of see what's happening here. So that's the rough cut on these models. We're going to do a 3D finish cut using the same selected vectors as the boundary. I'm going to change this to, I am using my 16th inch end mill. So that's good. And I'm going to calculate that toolpath. How many said, okay, this one's a bad night. We gotta go. We'll come back and revisit this later. How many went and had a beer after that explanation? That was terrible. Oh. We take our text, offset it outward. That's going to be the female pocket. It's going to be reversed, put a border around it. It'll also be the male inlay. Take that same original text and offset it inward, and that's going to be the text that's V-carved. And you would usually paint that a color or gild it or, gold leaf it, faux gold leaf it and all. And it creates that contrasting color. And that'll create, you could use something like a teak wood, a real dark teak wood, or ebony, or, exotic wood and all, walnut. So it really just pops that trim line, that trim line around the letters just pops and everything. Okay. Let's go ahead and create our profile toolpath. I'm going to use a 1/4 inch end mill. Yeah, I'll use a 1/4 inch end mill. Got to remember this board's, 36 inches wide. 1/4 inch end mill. I didn't put any tabs on this or anything. I just want to be able to cut this part out and remove the waste material so y'all can see it. Okay. So that would be the ends of our board. All right, let's go ahead and let's create this. We'll use our V-carve vectors for a moment. Let's V-carve this just to kind of simulate it. It won't show the pinstriping, unfortunately, but you'll get the idea. That's what I need to do. Abandon ship. Holy cow. That's an unlucky ship right there. That video has been unlucky. All right. And then finally, let's create a pocket cut just to mill that down. And all this is going to do is just give it a little bit of a lip. Oh, stop, Laney, stop. Oh, this is brutal. Okay, give me a moment, guys. I got to do a bit of node editing here. I want the same width right here. I want it to be about the same as that. So please bear with me for a moment. I need to cut the vector here. cut the vector here. Go back into my normal selection mode, and I need to just use my right arrow key and open that up. Not that far. Right about there. And go back into node editing. See all these nodes down here and everything that were created and all. I'm going to redraw those vectors using my curve fit tool. I'm going to allow it to create some Bezier curves. And I don't have any sharp corners, so I can turn that off. I'm just going to replace that so it limits, you know, narrows down those vectors a little bit for me. And I'm going to come in and kind of see if I can bump, bump, bump. 2 bumps on that one. 1, 2. Oh, let's see here. Not the prettiest, but it'll work. I'm going to take that shape that I just created. I'm going to mirror it to the other side, create a mirror copy and flip it to the other side. And I'm going to come in with my scissor tool, and I'm going to trim away this overlap here and that there. I'm going to come over here and trim away this black line. And I'm going to come in and now create that pocket toolpath within that object there. No selected vector. Let's select it. Make sure it's joined. It is closed. So let's calculate that. All right. So let's end this with a bang here. We got our pocket. We got our profile cut. We got our 3D finish cut, our 3D rough cut, and we got our V carve. Let's go ahead and profile cut needs to be last. Pocket cut needs to be first, followed by the 3D rough cut because they use the same bit. Followed by the V-carve 3D finish. That's fine. All right. So with those, we're going to preview. Going to reset our preview and preview all visible toolpaths. And this is it. So guys and girls, right now we're going to be wrapping up here in a moment. Let's start asking some questions because I know I confused the heck out of you. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a non-recorded video, a non-live video, a recorded video of this process without the screw ups. That's going to be short and to the point, maybe 15 minutes long at the most, if that. And you'll be able to refer back to it. It will be on Spindle TV. And you'll be able to refer back to it without having to go through all this confusion that I just did. I screwed up tonight. So many screw ups on the design and the explanation of that inlay. It's a very simple process. Basically, I do it with my inlay cutting boards and things where I create outlines. And you create your first V-carve. Fill in your male and female, your inlay, should I say, not V-carve. You create your first inlay. get it all together, get it milled back down flat and everything, so you have that inlay of that contrasting color. And then if I wanted to, I could do another inlay of a separate contrasting color in the middle of that, but I don't. I just want to V-carve and gild or paint or whatever you want to call it, gold leaf it. And so that I have a nice, if I'm doing this in white oak, let's say, nice, that's what ships used to be made out of. And I do a nice teak inlay. And then I come in and V-carve that teak inlay and gild it with a nice gold. Gives that, from that gold, it gives that nice dark contrasting color and all. And about halfway through that explanation, I bet you a lot of you said, hell, I could just paint that pinstripe much quicker. And then Mike jumps in and says, could you create a profile toolpath around the letters to create that little pinstripe? And if I were to use a round end mill to create, a little channel there for, a profile, I still have to fill it with another inlay, but I'm going to have rounded inside and outside corners because it's a rounded bit. I could do a V-carve profile, but then I'm going to have to create a little V-carve inlay to go around there. And this kind of just makes my inlay much more solid. It's it's 0.3 inches deep. It's a solid inlay, and I don't have to worry about glue gaps or anything like that. And it would just be a nice looking inlay. Now, what I'm going to do with tonight's class files and everything, I'm going to create a couple of quarter board signs. I'm going to throw in that compass model that I told you about. I do want to take a moment and just model a quick compass. It only takes a few minutes to create a model of it, just so the people that do have the modeling capabilities see how to do it. And then we're going to call it a night. We're going to wrap this up at here in just a few minutes. And everything. But yeah, I screwed it up. I screwed up the explanation. I made it much more confusing. All the new people that are new to Vectric are going, what in the heck? Holy cow, I'll never figure that out. Let's go ahead and throw that in there. And let's give this pocket cut here. Let me just color that black for a minute. So you kind of be able to get the idea. And it's missing one thing. I don't know if I can get it. I don't know if I can do a little chamfer. Might be able to do a little chamfer there. Let me see if I can break the edge on that. I gotta look at my design. All right, let me see if I can break the edge on that real quick. I'm going to turn on my model boundaries. And I'm going to, where these boundaries connect together, I'm going to use those vectors. I'm going to select the model boundary vectors and this border. And I'm going to copy them to a new layer called vectors. And what that will allow me to do is take this and trim away. First of all, I got to ungroup this one. And that will allow me to trim away this. Not that. Not that. Geez, son of a gun. Okay. On this side, I trim away. Oh, not that. What I'm doing is I'm cutting the line here because there's two vectors on top of each other. I'm just cutting that line so that I can then come back and delete those vectors. And this profile here would be the profile that I would chamfer. Profile toolpath. I'm going to go about a 1/16 of an inch deep, 90-degree V-bit on the outside of the line, and I'm going to let that bit step in a negative 3/16 of an inch. If all goes well, my bit should just break that edge. And I stepped in too far. Let me see if that wasn't a bad looking look. Nice little border, but let me step in. Let me step down. All right, let's see here. 0.09 instead of a 1/16. Oh, so damn close. Little bit more. Probably need to go 0.1875. It's getting all right. Let's step it down 0.1875. I should have come in. I shouldn't have gone so far on my offset allowance. 0.1875. This one's most likely gonna do it, but it's most likely gonna cut into my damn shell right there. We'll find out. Abandoned ship, abandoned ship. No. There we go. No fear, no fear. So just nice little chamfered edge just to kind of finish it up. So imagine that gold inlay right there has a nice contrasting color around it. Imagine if this board was, you know, a kind of a white oak You wouldn't have any color in the background here. Could probably do a texture around the inlays and all that stuff, but we're not going to push that. And let's see what we got here. Let's go back up and answer some questions here. And let's kind of make this bigger. I don't know why you guys are watching me. Basically, what I did is I did a profile cut based on, did a profile cut here based on these vectors, that shell vector and the border trimmed together to create that vector, to create that little chamfered edge around the board. All right, let's answer some questions. Let's go back up here real quick and what we got here. It just proves you're a human like the rest of us. Thank you, Troy. I appreciate that. Guys, give me a thumbs up if you can appreciate that I'm human. Don't feel bad. We're all learning together. Thanks. Let's see here. Rodney says, V-carve first and fill with black epoxy. Go to bed, get up in the morning, and carve out the inner with this only 1/8 of an inch. You will not see wood grain. That's a good idea. I've never thought about epoxy in that way. So that's a pretty cool concept. Yeah. So might have to play with that. Then you could do some really nice, nice epoxy. You could do some kind of like a blue metallic inlay or something, or yeah. Thumbs up, down, thumbs up, done. Thumbs up, done. Thanks, Dave. I appreciate that, man. But I say welcome to my world. Thanks, Laney. Always learning from watching you. Yeah, I've screwed. Tonight has been a one screw up after the other. But all in all, not a bad name. And basically, I gave the ship some bad luck by naming it Abandoned Ship. That's what the problem was. We were all on a sinking ship from the start. As soon as I named it, as soon as I named the sign, it was over. But Dave, I appreciate that. Dave, this is what I enjoy. I get the kudos from you guys. Even though I screw up, you kind of understand that everybody's human. I just hate wasting your time and all. I don't want to waste your time, but you can also see the struggles that I go through and, how we bounce back from them, how we recover from them, and everything. But you kind of get the idea of these signs. Now, keep in mind, this sign is 36 inches long. It looks like it's short and stubby in this preview, but it's 36 inches long. And if you want that long, narrow look, we would have just sized things down a bit and cut out, the profile. But I went the full 7 1/4 inches, so it looks short and stubby and everything. And if you wanted more definition, because the shells, imagine that the shell cuts, the shells here. Imagine that those shells are also, gilded, if you will. That was my profile. I gilded the profile, not the 3D finish. The shells were also gilded. Got a nice gold gilding on them, or gold paint and everything. On that, let's take it the last step further on that pocket cut. Let's give it a nice not that light, a nice little marine blue, and I wish I could show the outline with that dark contrasting band going around the letters. They would really just make that pop, if you will. All right. I appreciate that, Camaro. That's my big kudos right here. You're the best. You're still the best. Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Far from it, but I appreciate that kind words. Yeah, it's not the final product, but it's the journey of learning together for sure, William. I really appreciate that. And where's the thumbs up icon? Is it not in the underneath the video? Underneath the video, there should be a thumbs up button. Hopefully they didn't take it away. They're like, this video is so bad, we're taking away the thumbs up button. And William, you're absolutely right. It is about learning together. And Rodney, man, that's cool. Thank you. And thanks for the idea about the epoxy. Man, you know, that would look just ever so sharp. You know, an epoxy inlay and everything. I haven't gotten to work with too much epoxy, too much, but when it comes to the V-carves and stuff like that. So I bet that would come out really nice and all. Hey, you're welcome. I appreciate that. I appreciate it. And Calusa Custom Cabinets. Throw out your name so I don't have to keep. I want to call you Calusa. I don't know why. But epoxy inlays are awesome. Tom P61. Epoxy inlays are awesome. I'm going to have to try that and everything. And Rodney, now I do epoxies and I do the deep pour epoxies because I'm usually pouring like river tables or something. I haven't done any epoxy with my signs yet. But is there an epoxy brand that you like that you throw out a recommendation? I'll throw out my recommendation. Let me see if I can find my picture of it. And then get my images here. So there's two deep pour epoxies that I've used in the past that I like, and the first one, if it loads properly, is Haas. Let's get it to load over here. Hey, fit you. There we go. The Moss deep pour I like, but I also like Total Boat deep pour epoxy, and Total Boat is I just saw it. Dang it. Right here. And it's a thick set because I pour deep river tables and all, and a little bit of a slower curing time for those deep pours and stuff. But they've got a price tag to them. The epoxies do. I used to use Alumilite epoxies. There's another one out there, Epoxy. I heard is really good. Epoxy. Epoxy I haven't tried. They were at a woodworking show and I saw them, and I really I wanted to try them out. I haven't ordered any in to try that out. I usually use the Moss MAS deep pour. And then recently I tried the Total Boat. I saw that in a video, and I got some, and I kind of like that one too. But Rodney uses Stone Coat. So there you go. So we got Epoxy, Stone Coat, Moss MAS deep pour, and Total Boat. Those are some good suggestions. And now Baron does a mixture of epoxies with his stuff and to make it pop. So yeah, it's and like Baron says, now I have to throw this comment up there, is Easier than painting and cooling and cooler looking. Epoxy is easier than painting and cooler looking. But yeah, stone coat. So there's some good ones. Tom P69, same as for your bar top epoxies and stuff. When I first started with epoxies, and I hate to say this, because I don't, there's no bad brand or what have you. But when I first started with epoxies, I started with the epoxies that you would get from Hobby Lobby, or Michaels or Joann Fabrics and all. And it's the little bottles of 2-part of resin and clear pour, whatever the brand names and stuff were. And that's where I started with epoxies and everything. And then when I stepped into like the little bit higher dollar, like the Moss Depour's got a good price tag. But I started with before Moss, I started with Alumilite. And I liked it, and no problem with it whatsoever. But I ended up changing from that to the Depours because I needed more curing time for the river tables and things. And then saw a video that somebody recommended, Total Boat. So I got some of that, and I like that. But I've never done epoxy on any one of my little signs. I've only used epoxy for big projects. So may have to do one and see how it goes. Oh, there you go. And last comment, we'll end this one for the night on our comments here, is camp signs with glow pigments to spot. Yep. So for campers at night, that's cool. Absolutely. That's very, very cool. And now Grant has a great question. What do you use to color your epoxies? And there are different metallic pigments and stuff that you can buy. Epoxy has their own, but let me see if I can pull up. Bear with me. Epoxy pigment. Let me see if I can pull up a picture since I'm throwing out these names and everything. So if we pull this over, so Epoxy, they have their color pigment sets and stuff, and they have a wide range of colors and all that are very good. I got, what I get from the show, I got like 4 that they gave me for just to check out and stuff. So gotta throw out their name. That was a long time ago, but shoot, it doesn't take a whole lot to mix in. So this is a really good pigment. And then I've used, has anybody else ever used Indian ink? Have you ever used Indian ink, period? I used to use Indian ink to color my stains, as a stain, not to color my stains, but to color my boards. I used to use it as a stain, an actual natural stain. But there's a lot of different brands of different metallic pearls and packs and things that you can get on Amazon and stuff like that. You don't have to use the powdered pigments and all that are with that brand. It's kind of recommended. Like if you're using a epoxy, you want to use their pigments and all, because they kind of go hand in hand. But there's all kinds of different pigments and things to use. And I like the Pearl Essence epoxies. I love the way that they look, especially when you take and you pour the epoxy in, and then you can take a little stick or a little something and just give that swirl, that extra look. I love the Pearl Essence epoxies. And yeah, so any of those, Grant. Any you can find different pigments on Amazon. You might even be able to find some of that old glow in the dark that old Rodney was talking about. All right, let's hide that. All right, it's time for a cold beverage. I agree. In my case, it'll be or Sprite. I can't drink Dr. Pepper anymore. Okay, guys and girls, until next time, give me a thumbs up if you like this. Sorry about the chatter and the talk and everything. We didn't get to the compass, but I will throw in that model. I promise in our next class, we will talk about a little bit about 3D modeling, and we'll make that compass. It's a very quick thing, but I don't want to go past 10 o'clock, and it's already 10 o'clock for the evening. And until next time, I'll see you in the next one.